let's keep that energy throughout the entire day. Really excited and thankful for being here today. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about leadership. How many of you guys are managers or leaders in this room? Okay, great. Now, what do you guys think is the first level of leadership? The very first level, the person that, who do you have to lead before you lead anybody else? Yourself. That's the first level of leadership. If you can't lead yourself, it's really hard to lead and to impress other people. You see, nobody wants to be recruited. People want to be impressed, and to impress other people, you have to be impressive. So the workbook is going to be for the sales reps training, but I want everybody to go to page 34 of the actual workbook, because we're going to start off by going over a little bit of this. So you can't be a great leader until you are first a great follower. Anyone that is highly successful will be able to tell you that the people that they followed. Okay? How many of you guys have a mentor in here? Somebody that's been able to show you the path. Throughout my training today, I'm going to be giving you nuggets. And these are aha moments. You see, we each have a challenge today. The challenge for me is to give you the aha moment where the light bulb turns on in your mind. And the challenge for you is to actually program the information. This is the most powerful computer that there is. But the problem is you cannot reflex an idea, you can only reflex the actual words. MPDR. You memorize, you practice, you drill, and you rehearse. Now, there's 3 specific people that you need to find. You need to find one person that you're being mentored from. You're looking for one person that you're competing with, and then you're looking for one person that you're mentoring. How many of you guys have ever taken a brand new person in the field with you, where you're like, here, let me show you how this job works? Did you guys sell better or worse? Better. Why is it always like that? It's because you're telling them, you're self-talking. You see, the things that go through our mind are going to dictate our words. The thoughts become words, the words become an emotion, the emotion becomes a feeling, the feeling becomes a judgment, and the judgment becomes a decision. I just recently was able to take over for my mentor, Tom Hopkins. Has anybody ever read the book, How to Master the Art of Selling? So one of the greatest sales trainers of all time. And we had a conference where we spoke with the lady Sharon Leckler, who wrote the book Outwitting the Devil. She took the manuscript from Napoleon Hill that was locked up for 73 years, and she actually wrote that as well as Think and Grow Rich. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me in the first 5 minutes of actually reading the book is the devil operates and is in 98% of people's minds and covers the blank space. So I've recently realized that, the person that I wanted to emulate was always Tom, right? And really the person I want to emulate is God. My biggest competition is the devil, and the people that I'm mentoring is the community. You see, the reason I do what I do is I think of the thousands of sales reps that might have never made it. I look at the people that write that they knocked 150 doors to set 2 appointments and got 1 bill. And I'm like, people say there are no secrets in sales. There are a lot of secrets. The reason why there's so much mediocrity in our game is because people don't train. Training today is like the athlete that goes into the weight room. It might suck to go into the gym every day, but professional athletes, how much time do they put into the gym to become a professional? How many years are they in the gym? What percentage of those people are professionals? If you lifted every day and you were the best player in your high school, are you going to go to the pros? Literally less than 1% are professionals. See, the common theme with any professional is the word practicing. They are practicing professionals. You look at doctors, you look at lawyers, you look at athletes. You can combine all the professionals and put them in against the sales professionals, and the sales professionals out-earn them. You see, I had a 1.8 GPA in high school. Now I'm a professional trick-or-treater. I've never actually had to work at all in my life. I just go out there and I exercise and I make friends, and the crazy thing about it is I never went to college. If you were a doctor Could you graduate from college and the next day do open heart surgery? What would you have to do after you paid a bunch of money for college? What do you have to do after that if you wanted to become a doctor? Starts with R. You have to go into something called residency. And they're making like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, right? No. They make like 50, 60, 70K. They have to dedicate and sacrifice decades to be able to earn what you guys have in front of you. You have your professional agreement right in front of you. It's just whether or not you take advantage of it. You see, your income is going to be in direct proportion to the skills and abilities that you develop. You see, this is just a game for me. I've never had to work. When you maintain anything, and I'm going to give you a major nugget right here, and it's very basic, but when this light bulb went off in my mind, it made a huge difference for me. When you maintain anything, it will become exhausting. When you're building, it's energizing. What do you guys think is the secret ingredient to building? Starts with an F. It's a 3-letter word. Fun. If you are not having fun, it's not worth it. You got to figure out a way to have fun with this. I've never had to work in 16 years. That's it. Having fun. So when I first met Tom, I was 24 years old, and I sat down with him in a Thai restaurant, and I remember asking him, I said, what advice would you give to a young 24-year-old, that's trying to become the best version of himself and following, footsteps of an individual like you? And these 3 aha moments that he gave me were invaluable. The first thing that he told me was do what you fear most. Because a lot of the time, you're not going to be able to accomplish things that are just in your comfort zone. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Do what you fear most. Risk is the down payment for success. You commit now and you figure it out later. Second thing that he told me, which is a line that I say to myself almost every day, is we must do the most productive thing possible at every given moment. We must do the most productive thing possible at every given moment. You see, when you procrastinate on doing things, what you're doing is you're ruining your future, you're avoiding the present, and you're living in the past. So when we procrastinate, we ruin our future, we avoid the present, and we live in the past. Okay, so when you procrastinate, you are ruining your future. You're avoiding the present, and you're living in the past. Okay, exactly. People are going to inspire you or drain you. You're all on something called the continuous journey toward the achievement of predetermined, worthwhile goals. And when I met Tom, he told me, do what you fear most. We must do the most productive thing possible at every given moment. And the third thing he told me was shared by his mentor. Now, does anybody know who mentored Tom Hopkins? Anybody? Okay, so this guy's rare, but he's probably the greatest sales trainer of all time. He's called the father of modern day selling. His name is J. Douglas Edwards. And J. Douglas Edwards used to travel by coach bus and present on stages like this. He did maybe 65 seminars in 70 days. And Tom was always a front row guy. He was right in the front row all the time, but he happened to be in the back of the room. And the way Mr. Edwards presents is he has so much energy. And he's up there on stage, he's just ripping, and he looks up and he passes out, falls down on the stage, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. They grab an ambulance, they pull him off on a stretcher. Tom's in the back of the room, he calls a cab, he said, follow that ambulance. They go to the hospital. J. Douglas Edwards is laying in the bed, finally gets into the room, and he asks him a question. He said, Mr. Edwards, why do you give so much? Why do you give so much? And his response was, because I always want to give people way more than they expect. And that's your nugget, not just in sales, but in life. If you can start giving people way more than they expect, and you go above and beyond for the families you serve, the people that you lead, that's how you're going to become the best version of yourself. And that was a huge aha moment for me, because if you start going above and beyond for other people, it's going to happen to you where other people start going above and beyond for you. So you have to find somebody, that you have to be a great follower. There's a lot of things that Knockstar is going to be able to do for you, and you've got to be a great follower of these systems, like the online training platform, like some of the R&D, research and development that I'm setting up for you guys. How many of you guys have ever seen the YouTube channel? Okay, do you guys see those things that I hand them? The slicks? So if I told you that we had a nice little white labeled Solar Pros version of those, would that be something that would be helpful for you and your teams? Yeah. All right, cool. So a lot of those things are coming for you guys. We're gonna make selling fun, but we're gonna make selling a lot easier for you guys. So this is the first part. If you guys wanna take notes, we're gonna go into page 34 once I go through this. But the first part of leadership is planning. You guys are going into a year where you have to understand temporary imbalance is how you are going to get ahead. Next to the word success is sacrifice. There's so much sacrifice that's involved. And I'll tell you right now, I struggled with this for a while, because from 18 years old till about 25, I lived on the road. How many of you guys ever sold alarms before in here? Couple. Eddie, I know he sold some alarms in his day. But I'm living suitcase to suitcase, 6 months at a time, and I used to question myself. I say, because I had no friends. I literally, all I did was check the scoreboard. I didn't go to college. When I met a girl, I'm like, sorry, I'm emotionally unavailable. And the main thing for me was to keep the main thing the main thing. And sometimes when you're going 110 miles per hour the entire time, you start thinking, am I sacrificing? I cut out all my distractions, and the way that I coped with that is I realized I'm gonna balance it all out later in my life. I'm gonna balance it out. I'm gonna live temporary imbalance now, and I'm gonna be the example, because you're either gonna be the example for your team, or you're gonna be the warning. You're either gonna be interested, or you're gonna be committed. You're gonna be a spectator, or you're gonna be the participant. The decisions you make are going to decide your wealth. The most successful people are willing to do things that unsuccessful people are not willing to do. So the first part of being able to set up the year where you get ahead, we had one individual that did 383 installs, over 500 sales. He worked 351 out of 365 days this last year, part of our Knockstar program. And you look at the average person that might install 50 a year, which isn't bad. But 50 installs a year, he's gonna have to work 7.5 years to catch up to 383 installs, where Dylan, the one that did 383, could be hanging out on the beach for the next 6 years and come back and be like, okay, now we're tied. For him being committed, for him saying, hey, this is my sport. You see, this individual used to love video games. He used to be obsessed with video games, and he said, I used to always think, what if I could be the player of the video game? And that's how he envisions himself. Somebody said, how do you live with such imbalance? He's like, no, it would be imbalance for me if I wasn't in the field. Because that's the most productive thing that he can be doing, is playing the sport and checking the scoreboard and see that he's in first. So planning comes down to 3 things. If you guys want to take notes during this section before we get into the keynote: organization, management, and then research and development. Before anybody, you work for yourself. You are the CEO of your own business. Organization is the process of making a blueprint. This is the first part of management. This is the first part of leadership. This is when you start visualizing what you want to accomplish. Organization is the process of making that blueprint or visualizing. Management is the process of making that blueprint come to life. And that's when you start to verbalize it. You see, Muhammad Ali said, I'm humble at home, but I'm not humble when I go into the ring. Because humble people rarely get places. Whenever I've accomplished the greatest feats in my career, whether it was selling 45 alarm systems in a week, 114 roofs in 10 days, or 43 solar loans in 28 days while traveling market to market, it's because I did these 2 things. I visualized what I wanted to accomplish, and then I verbalized it. I posted on my Instagram, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. Who thinks I can do it, yes or no? And I would use all the people that said no as gasoline. I screenshotted them. I'm like, dude, I can't wait to cross this kid off and send him the text message, because I treated this and I made it into a big game, okay? There's levels of a salesman, right? Is Alex Winters in here? Right here? Okay, so Alex, stand up for a second. So Alex, I saw, was not only the top setter, but the top closer in January in 23-degree weather in Illinois. You have to understand there's levels of a sales professional. What we call Alex is the stone cold trapper. The stone cold trapper is the highest level of a sales professional. Under the stone cold trapper is the master closer. That's the king or queen of selling. Then you have the closer, then you have the dealsman, then you have the salesman. What I always thought was the lowest level of a salesman was an order taker. Have you guys ever heard of that phrase, an order taker? But back in the 1920s and 30s, there was one level lower than an order taker. You want to know what they used to call the absolute lowest person in the sales team? A tour guide. They're giving free tours, right? But everyone give it up for Alex, Stone Cold Trapper. He's got his momentum going. Money, bro. Keep that momentum. Losing is not an option. You got the throne. Don't let somebody take it from you. So management is the process of making that blueprint come to life, and when you start verbalizing something. Like, I am going to be the top solar pro this year. I am going to do 300 installs. I am going to do 200 installs. I am going to do this. Losing is not an option. Some do, some don't, so what? But it's up to you to make that decision. You visualized it in your mind, and then you started to verbalize it. Speed of the leader, speed of the team. Your team is going to do half of what you produce. Just how it is. One of the most important people within an organization is the rabbit. And I was always that position. It's not always the easiest thing to do. But when I went from alarms to solar, I said I want to go from a Jerry Rice to a Jerry Jones. And that's when I was able to build a sales team of over 900 individuals. And I did that organically. The culture comes from within the culture. I'm going to explain to you the steps and the blueprint to be able to do that. So what do you guys feel like is your job as a leader? I want to get some hands. I want to get a little bit of interaction. What is your job as a leader?
To replicate myself in success.
To replicate yourself in success. Good. Serve. Good. You know, salespeople should have never been called salespeople at the beginning. We should have been called servants. Right? When people start, getting upset, I say, sir, this isn't a sales process, this is a service. Right? If they're really yelling at me, I say, sir, this isn't a sales process, you're actually starting to make me feel a little uncomfortable. Right? I'm going to explain to you the greatest technique in selling when we have the rep training a little bit later. But your job as a leader, broken down to the ridiculous, and this is something you're not going to want to forget, is selling to salesmen. That's what your main role as a leader is. If you selling to salesmen, they are no longer working. They are playing a game. They are keeping a score. And this is probably one of the biggest hacks that I can teach you right here. Is if you can learn to sell salesmen on selling, or selling to salesmen, then they're never going to work at all. All you're going to be doing is being addicted to the scoreboard, playing a game. How many of you guys played competitive sports growing up? Okay. How many of you guys can remember specifically the biggest game you've ever played in your life? Like, it would come to mind right away. All right. What was the biggest game you ever played in?
We set the offensive scoring record in football, 72-14.
Okay. That was a big game that you were going into? Okay. What was your level of focus before that game in the locker room? Were you thinking about your science project? Were you thinking about the girl you were texting? You were just completely dialed in. And what I call that is myopic, M-Y-O-P-I-C. It's a complete tunnel vision. I can't see left, I can't see right. And this level of focus is what it takes to be at the top. Like I said, there's plenty of people that are interested. But it's up to you to make the decision to be committed. You're either going to be the example or you're going to be the warning. You're the participant or the spectator. Those decisions, like I said, are going to be what decides your wealth. The most successful people are willing to do things that unsuccessful people are not willing to do. So these are some of the main fundamentals that I focus on. First off is you have to provide a roadmap, not only for yourself, but for the individuals. The roadmap consists of checkpoints. All these checkpoints are what's going to allow people to actually accomplish the goals. Like I said, the way that we define success is the continuous journey toward the achievement of predetermined worthwhile goals. The great sales manager manages activity. If they manage activity, the result becomes automatic. If you manage the result, you go nowhere. To manage the activity, you must define the activity. And what I mean by that is actually understanding what time people are going to be checking in to work, what time they're checking in. So what I'll do is I'll have a call with my team and we'll break it down to the ridiculous. Hey, what time are you starting today? What time are you finishing at? If you're not going to work today, I'd rather have you just tell me you're not going to work. If you're going to be out, tell me you're going to be out there by 1 and stay till 7, you need to send a selfie into the group chat before 1, and then you need to send one after 7. If you send it in at 1:02 and you clock out at 6:58, you didn't accomplish what you needed to accomplish. So start managing the salespeople's activity, not the result. And then to manage the activity, you must define the activity. If you notice, prove a full day's work. When you have new people out there with you, if you take a 15-minute lunch or a 30-minute lunch, they're going to start taking hour lunches. See, when I'm in the field, I pack everything. I say, if I leave to go to get a sandwich, that's going to cost me $1,000. Because how you learn at the very beginning is going to set their future up for how they actually perform and what's expected. It's setting the right expectations right at the beginning. Tell them, show them, then drill for skill. And then heroes should be looked at as heroes, bums will be looked at as bums. The reason I say that is because you're going to get 50% of production from the square root of your team. If you have 49 people on your team, 50% of the volume is going to come from 7 of those individuals. If you have 36 people on your team, you're going to get 50% of the volume from 6. People are either going to inspire you or drain you, and I want to put all my energy into the people that inspire me. I want to put my time into the people that are trying to develop, the people that are serious about this. So these are some of the core tenets of success, and we're going to go to page 34 in the workbooks, and I want to kind of break this down. So culture. Culture is not the most important thing, it is the only thing. You want to have culture centered on integrity and results, and then compromising on talent within an organization is toxic. That's one of the most important things for me, is I run an invite-only, I've always ran an invite-only sales organization. Your culture is really going to come from the culture. It's going to come from the individuals that are producing. It's going to come from the people that are 1,000% committed. And these are the core tenets of success to actually building this championship culture. This is what I look for when I bring people into my organization, is they have to be relationship building skills, mission oriented, customer focused, and self-motivated. I will not compromise on somebody that is not coachable. I will not compromise on someone does not have self-discipline. I will not compromise on authenticity, work ethic, reliance, or that's competitive. 3 of the most important things that I care about in any business relationship is trust, loyalty, and longevity. Those are the people that you want. Loyalty is rare. Nobody wants to do something for 6 months, switch to something else. So that longevity aspect is also something very important. Alignment. Talk straight, demonstrate respect, create transparency, right your wrong, show loyalty, deliver results, get better, confront reality, clarify expectations, practice accountability, listen first, keep commitments, and extend trust. The team has to be fully aligned. A lot of the time, the team made the decision. It wasn't me. The team made the decision on why they wanted to be better. It's the same way with the families that we serve. I can tell them all the reasons why it makes sense to go solar, but when they tell me the reasons why it makes sense to go solar, now they actually believe it. And these are the 7 P's of being able to promote yourself and how to build the dream team. And it starts with performance. You have to have higher standards. Mediocrity is not an option. That's what I tell people. Losing is not an option. I remember when I was in a competition selling alarms, got down to the final 4 and they said, we're going to fly you to an undisclosed location. And they flew me to San Antonio, Texas. I'm a kid from Boston, Massachusetts. I never even been to Texas at that point. And I remember getting my hair cut, going to the plane, putting on my Boston hat. And I was like, dude, I'm not flying to San Antonio, Texas to lose. And that needs to be your mindset going into this year, whether it be being the top individual, whether it's being the top team, the top region. It all starts with you visualizing these things now, starting to verbalize them, and then actually believing them. Perception. What people think of you is very important in managing others. The best managers, the best leaders, they command respect from the team. And that's what I said before. You treat heroes like heroes, but you treat bums like bums. If people aren't committed, yeah, I'm going to be hard on them. I'm going to push them. I'm going to give them tough love. I'm going to punch them in the gut, and I'm going to make them feel better after. And that's called intentional communication. How is this person going to feel after I communicate with them? Present, be in the moment. You have to pay attention. Execution comes from understanding these processes. Process, can you follow and teach a process? Passion, are leaders passionate about your mission? And then people, we work with people, not robots. Finally is persistence, it's having grit. Does anybody know the acronym for grit? Get ready, it's tough. Right? It's going to be tough. Being great is exhausting. Not saying that I'm great, but what I am telling you is be prepared to be exhausted. It's all worth it. Right? When Operation Go-Go Gadget bank account happens because you hustled and put your head down and went out in 23-degree weather and was the top setter and the top closer because he's committed. But I guarantee he's not working. He's just playing a game. Right? Every single time he has a transaction, it's on to the next one. He starts building his belief. So these are the 7 P's of promotion. You want to give your prospects assignments. You delegate your authority, but never your responsibility. Contact beats content. The more communication that you have with your team. And then communication is what makes the vision a reality. Like I mentioned, intentional communication is how is this person going to feel after I communicate with them? You know, what I like to do with all the salespeople I've ever managed is I like to have a little file on each one of them. Right? You go over something like a SWOT analysis. What's your strength? What's your weakness? What's your opportunities? What's your threats? But then you've got to understand what makes your people tick. How many of you guys ever heard of, I'm doing this for my why? Have you ever heard of that? It's not about your why. I promise you it's about your who. Because when I started in 2011 selling alarms for a company called Platinum Protection, I had the strongest who. My dad, he's always had health conditions, and I watched him struggle. My parents got divorced, saw him get down to his last 20 bucks, and he took that 20 bucks and he bought me a pack of baseball cards when I was a kid. He wouldn't buy himself anything. So my first year going into alarms, I said, hey, I'm going to beat everybody, and there's going to be a party at the end of the year, and I'm going to go get my first tuxedo, and I'm going to have my dad in the crowd, and he's going to see his son come up. And it's got to be about your who. And once you understand your sales professional's who, that's how you can really start managing the activity and the performance. So if Billy comes in and says, my mom works in a factory and I see her struggle every day, and the reason why I'm going to work so hard is because I want to pay off my mom's mortgage, and I want to be able to help her out because she's sacrificed so much for me. And then 3 weeks into it, he's not training, he's not on the scoreboard, and I can pull him into the office, or I can call him and say, hey man, were you not serious about what you told me about your mom? And then I can get him back on track. So understand the who behind the sales professionals that you lead. And then to break this down, like I told you, you visualize, you verbalize, you have clarity, you have energy, necessity, productivity, influence, and courage. And then this is really how you are going to scale. And a lot of you guys may have heard me talk about this formula before, but the formula constantly gets developed. And this is probably my most important formula because I feel like it's almost like a math equation. And it starts with the desire and the dreams that you have. The desire and the dreams, which is your why or your who. Who are you doing this for? Tom refers to it as an ardent desire. Does anybody know what the word ardent means? Ardently desire, ardent. Think about it, A-R, ardent. Ardent desire is like a burning desire. Like it's not just going to be something you're interested in and then 3 weeks later that fire burns out. It's just a blazing fire that this is why I need to do this. The desire and the dreams or your why will lead to discipline. You are never going to have consistent discipline if you don't know why you're doing this or who you're doing it for. Money is the lowest level of a motivator. This is what happens. Motivators, money, achievement, recognition, self-acceptance, acceptance from others. This is the demotivators. So many people are in a constant conflict. They're almost paralyzed because they're striving for the motivators, but they're being pulled down by the demotivators. You see, a lot of people are suffering from self-doubt while others are intimidated by your full potential. Because you sit there, fear of failure. Hey, I'm doubting myself with this. A salesman is first off a man that can sell himself to himself. But the problem with that instruction is you're going into a sale or somebody's telling you they're not interested and then you start hanging your head. The sales professional needs to stop focusing on what they're doing wrong and only focus on what they're doing right and lead it to the leaders to being able to help them with improvement. Because the way we envision ourselves is so important. How do you think Mike Tyson thought about himself when he was walking into the ring? Do you think he thought he was going to lose the fight? He knew he was going to win the fight before the fight started. And it's the same level that you guys need to go into this year, is really have that myopic vision of winning. I know I'm going to win. The result's already there. And there's two words that come to my mind from when I first started in sales, and that's absolute certainty. The top sales professionals have an absolute catching belief about themselves. They shine with conviction. That discipline is going to lead to demonstration. That's you actually executing. Like I mentioned, the team is going to do half of what the leader does. You figure out a way to get yourself to doing 20 accounts a week, your team's going to start doing 10. The week I did 45 in alarms, I had 4 or 5 people that did 20 for the first week. The second week of January, I slept on an air mattress, I stayed in a blitz house, which will be the next YouTube episode, and I did a 6-day blitz, and I did 18 accounts. I had guys that did 7 or 8. People do not want to be recruited. People want to be impressed. To impress other people, you have to become the best version of yourself. The harder that you work on yourself, the better you are in your job. So have that story to impress people, and you're never going to have that story unless you demonstrate if you had the discipline or you had the ardent desire on what you're doing and why you're doing it. That documentation is what's going to lead to duplication. And when you duplicate and make an impact on others, then you disappear. And that's when you move from a sales rep to an assistant manager, an assistant manager to a manager to a regional to a vice president. And this is called the 6 Ds of being able to scale your business. Leadership is not easy. It's exhausting, right? You have to manage all these different personality types. But understand when you are managing others, they're either going to inspire you or they are going to drain you. And it's your job to be able to set the pace of your culture and what your team does this year. So what I wanted to do is, I actually wanted to introduce you to an individual that's going to come up and speak a little bit more on leadership. And then I've got a few special treats for you guys. I know you guys are mostly the leaders in here. So one thing that I am going to be doing for you guys, which they weren't ready today, is I took all the slicks that I use in the field and we've white labeled them for Solar Pros. So all of you guys, all of your people will be able to have those. We're going to do a training during the rep training on how to use them. We're going to be doing some role playing. It's going to be a very interactive training. We're going to be covering the rest of the workbook. But really quickly, I guess, before I call the next individual up, is there any specific questions that you guys might have for me right now? Open it up, maybe something that you think would provide you with an aha moment or really set up the trajectory of your year this upcoming year. Any maybe 2 or 3 quick questions? Yep, right here, Alex.
I know you said temporary accounts. What do you do to kind of keep yourself energized throughout the day? Because I know sometimes, like after a long sale, whether they're not able to train, how do you kind of fire right back in?
Yeah, so what I do is, sometimes, like I said before, you have to watch your thoughts. Those things we think about will become the words. I don't like to leave turf, but if I need to take a quick 5-10 minute prep period, I carry a cooler in my car, so if I need something, I can do that. But I just take maybe a 5 to 10 minute reset. Like when I go to the field, my strategy is I'll go to the area. I do not knock doors, like knock every door. I'm a hunter. I'm only knocking the people with cars in the driveway. I'm only knocking the doors with signs of life. The most important thing that I could explain to you on how I keep the energy is the conversations that I have with myself are the most important. Let's go, Taylor. Come on, T. This is a done deal. Come on, bro. You're the best. They have never talked to anybody like you. Dude, this would be ridiculous for them not to do this. They're definitely getting it. They get crushed in sun. Perfect house. They're definitely going to get it. Perfect house. Oh, hi. How are you? I'm literally talking out loud to myself the entire day. I have some kids shadowing me, and I'm like, dude, they were cooking spaghetti and meatballs last night, and the wife was so mad because the husband leaves the TV on all the time, and the electric bill just keeps going up. And I'm talking out loud, and like the kid's like, how does he know all this stuff? I said, don't worry about it, because I start selling myself beforehand. The first person you need to sell is yourself. The first person you need to lead is yourself. I go to the field with 3 people, and I'm like, dude, watch this. I'm going to sell the first door, guaranteed. I'm on fire today. And I'm in this gated community. I knock the door, and I have a perfect presentation. People react to the range, the volume, the pace, and the diction. So how I'm presenting was just fire. And I knock on the door, I go through my presentation, perfect. And the guy goes, this is a gated community, you're not supposed to be in here. And he slams the door in my face. And I was like, bro, that was nasty. That was a perfect presentation. If I rip like that all day, we're going to be on the scoreboard. We're going to be crushing. Second door, perfect presentation. This is a gated community, blah, 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 get out of here. Dude, I am on fire today. And I really was. Rejection turns me on. Like, perfect, But I'm just like so on point this day with the way I'm presenting. Like I told you, enthusiasm is 51% of the entire sales process. The people with the most energy make the most money. I'm like 7 doors in, slam in my face on the 7th one. I'm like, dude, I am doing so good today. I am crushing it, and I believe this. It wasn't just fake. And then the 8th door, 9th door, after 2 hours of being out there where most people start hanging their head, I clench my jaw and I say, all right, the next one's going to be a deal. And I got one, and then they walked me over to the neighbor, and then I went to the other neighbor, and then I got 3 same-day solar deals in 2 hours, but it's because I didn't hang my head. I'm not focusing on what I'm doing wrong. I'm self-talking myself, but I actually believe it. How do you envision yourself? Do you envision yourself like somebody that's going to go face Mike Tyson in the ring? Or do you envision yourself as Mike Tyson? And these are the most important things. And that's the first step of, give you guys a little hint, I'm going to give you a quiz at the very end. And the first step of being able to set any deal is affirmation. But affirmation without discipline is delusion. That's what we call a jawbone. They like to talk about it all day. A lot of fake people living fake lives. But are you going to be the jawbone, the wishbone, the knucklebone that was maybe playing Call of Duty right now instead of being on the live stream or didn't show up? Or are you going to be the backbone of your organization? And those are really the things that you need to decide. I can give you the formula, I can give you the recipe, but it's you that needs to make that decision. Any other questions? Just talk a little louder. No, I definitely wasn't an organized person. Like I said, I had a 1.8 GPA. When we talk about organization, when homework was due, I'd be like looking at the kid's paper next to me. I'm like, dude, just give me the answers. I got to turn in my homework, right? So with organization, like we talk about, like that's the blueprint. That's the actual verbalizing what you're going to do. A lot of the time that helps me become organized is I commit now and I figure it out later. I would say that the words come out of my mouth where I commit to something, and then like the action happens, and through those thoughts and words create an emotion within me, and then I start to feel a certain way, and through that feeling I start judging myself and making decisions because of it. So organization might not be the easiest for a lot of people, but it's not fake it until you make it, but it's commit now and figure it out later. Like something happens like a challenge or a pivot, frustration plus dwelling, you quit. Frustration plus creativity is how you get better. And I sit there and I say, hey, what's the most productive thing possible that I can be doing right now? Okay, that's it. I'm just going to commit now. Hey guys, this is what we're doing. I'll go book an Airbnb. This is where we're blitzing. Hey, we're doing this. Even if nobody comes with me, if you build it, they will come. It's setting the example for your team and being the one that, is the one out front saying, hey, this is the direction that we're going. And that's one of the most important things about organization. One more question? A couple more? Yeah, right here.
Gotcha. So going back to Alex's question about being energized on the doors personally.
Uh-huh.
Going from the industry going to the summer model to an all-year model, how do you create that energy on a daily basis for your guys if we're doing like an all-year type thing? That's what we struggle with, is just keeping that energy going.
Like we said, we want to manage the activity, not the performance. Contact beats content. So a lot of it is really getting them to talk about what they're going to do. But also, this would be really hard. If I had to knock 100 doors to get 2 bills, yeah, it's going to be really hard. You're going to end up burning out. But that's where we develop the skills and abilities. If that sales professional can go out there in 5 doors and collect a bill, then he's just trick-or-treating for free money. He's literally looking at scratch tickets and saying, hey, if I talk correctly, I'm going to win the lottery ticket. So the biggest thing that I would say when you manage a year-long program is getting them to understand how important training is. And the more that you can develop their skills and abilities and it becomes a fun game, like some of these individuals like that are on the poster, Eddie, Tegan, Alex, a lot of these individuals, they don't become burnt out because they're stacking up. They're creating their future. And that's probably the biggest thing is it will become burnt out if they don't develop their skills and abilities. So that's why training is so important. And you guys are going to have access, I don't know if Josh announced it, but you guys will have access to Knockstar University, where we're going to have different programs like 30 Days to Pro, live sales breakdowns. We're going to have something called a medicine cabinet where somebody's struggling with motivation or different little parts and pieces of their presentation. You're going to say, hey, are you training? Are you watching the 3 to 5 videos a day? You as managers and leaders are going to have reports to see exactly what your sales professionals are doing. So what are they doing on their off time? Are they going home and playing video games, or are they spending that extra time to develop? And that's one of the biggest things that allowed me to get to the top as far as every company I've worked for, and building Knockstar and creating a culture within that team. It's just constantly developing, but it's not work for me. It's just a fun game that I play, and you have to create a game for them. And if it's a fun game, they're not gonna ever work a day in their life. And you'll have that balance, but the way that you do it is you create checkpoints. So for me, when I was working really hard, traveling all throughout Texas, Florida, California, Oregon, Colorado, and I was on that big blitz last year, my major checkpoint was, going to Peru. I knew that I was going to go to Peru and do charity work, and that was one of the biggest things that I was looking forward to. This year, we're going to be doing a trip in the Philippines. So that's one of the checkpoints that I'm hitting. Then we're going to have a big event in June 2nd and 3rd in Tennessee. We rented the biggest cabin called the Grand LeConte Lodge. It's sleeps 125 people. So I know that as long as I hit these checkpoints, I can refresh. Like Mario when he's playing the game and he picks up the mushrooms, you get energy from yeses, right? That's what happens. You get energy from when people say yes. I'm on that blitz and I'm like 25 days in and I'm like, dude, I'm exhausted. I start telling myself I'm so tired. And then they're like, all right, 7:30, another group of 4 is coming to knock with you. I didn't stop for lunch or anything. Usually it's like 4 or 5 people, that are with me at a time, and then the new 4 people come. I don't take any breaks. And I start telling myself I was tired. I wasn't tired. What happened was I got out of the car on a dirt road, I got an electric bill, then I got the next neighbor that was really hard to set, but I got him, then I got a 3rd one, then I got a 4th one, now I'm 6 straight houses with 6 straight bills, and it's 9:30 at night, and I had more energy at that time than I had the entire blitz. But an hour before, I told myself I was exhausted. So those are just the things that you think about, this blank space being occupied by negative energy. So really, for me, I get energy from yeses. If they develop their skills and abilities and they're going out there and everyone's doing business with them, everyone's giving them their electric bill, they're not going to get tired. These yeses are just going to create the energy for them. Let's go over 1 or 2 more questions. We'll go right here and then right here.
You said leaders like leaders and bums like bums. When you've seen someone be a leader but he acts like a bum and you want to bring them back up, what in your experience has been the best way to do that?
Great question. So for me, I am harder on the people that are not producing. And, if you aren't producing, I'm going to find out if you're interested or committed. And if people are interested in the opportunity, I would rather cut the dead weight. Because a lot of the time, if somebody's not willing to do the small things that are in their control, like commit to the hours they're working and simply send a selfie into the group chat, or simply watch 3 to 5 videos a day, it's not going to affect the organization. And when I talk about intentional communication, it's not like I'm just a tyrant and I'm going to start yelling at them and then say, get out of my office. It's more so that I'm like, I'm tough on them a little bit, but then I'm going to bring them up and make them feel a lot better than when they actually first walked into my office. I need to get them to understand why they're doing it. I need to get them to understand who they're doing it for. And I need to get them on that right path, because a lot of people are just distracted, and you as leaders are really the ones that are taking their hand and helping them. Like sometimes you almost are like a professional babysitter. Can anybody kind of understand that, what I mean by that? Like, you manage all these different personality types, and sometimes you feel kind of like a professional babysitter. And the people, like I said, that you manage, they're going to inspire you throughout that process or drain you. And I want to put my energy where I have influence, because a lot of the time you're putting all your time and energy into the lower end of your sales team, when really I want to put all my time and energy into the people that are moving the needle for me. I want to put all my time into them. Right? They're in the field, I'll hop in and listen to their presentation. Hey, I need you to switch this up a little bit. I need you to do this. Like, we have some proprietary information where we've created, anybody remember Clubhouse? Where you can voice chat? So we're creating something for you guys which has a chat for off the doors and on the doors. Imagine if you're in Florida and someone else is in Texas and you guys are knocking together with just an AirPod in your ear. So it's like all these little things of selling to salesmen is really what's going to create, you know, the difference for you and how you treat people. But I would say intentional communication is the most important thing. Always think about the end in mind. How are they going to feel after this conversation is made? All right, last question.
I was going to say, so for if a new manager that's new to management and sales, right? Sometimes they get overwhelmed with, man, I have to lead from the front, I have to recruit, I have to train these guys. What are some of your thoughts on how to manage all that with your new manager?
Great question. You know, for me, it's like you want to delegate your authority, but not necessarily your responsibility. So if I have Julian that's absolutely crushing it in the office, I might pull Julian to the side and say, hey, Julian, a lot of guys look up to you in the office. You know, you're absolutely crushing it right now. I want to be able to put you into a position where you actually are directing this new competition. And then I want to edify him in front of the team and say, hey, Julian's been crushing, he's going to be the new competition director. A lot of the times, managers stop focusing on sales. Tom told me something that really resonated. He said the next level of teaching sales is performing sales. And when you perform a sale in front of your people, that's probably the most impactful thing that you can do. You need to find out about the Eisenhower matrix. Is anybody familiar with what the Eisenhower matrix is? Okay, so there's important and urgent things that we need to focus on. There's not important and urgent things we need to focus on. There's not important or not urgent things that you need to completely cut out. It's called the Eisenhower matrix. Actually, you know, the next individual that pops up here will probably touch base on that a little bit more. And that's it, you know, like the biggest thing is a lot of people delegate other things and think it's okay to do certain things, but you know, I think selling is probably one of the most important things, to lead your team from the front and be the example. It may not be the easiest thing that somebody wants to hear, but really that's one of the most important things if you want to have a top office, if you want to, you know, be a top person. I'm probably sure a lot of these guys with their pictures up are those people that, you know, understood that leading from the front was the most important thing to actually build the organization. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the last part of the management training and the leadership training for you guys to actually hear from an individual that has been working alongside of me for my entire direct sales career. I'm talking before Alarms. I'm talking going back to 2008. And how many of you guys are like 20 years old, around there? All right. How old are you? 25. 25. Who's the youngest in here? How old are you? 17. So when I started was 18. I'm 33 right now. So that's 16 years. What was your name? What was it? He was 1 year old when he was 1 year old, you know, hanging out in his diaper. While me and this last individual were in Albany, New York, actually, and we were selling TV, phone, and internet for a company called Verizon Fios. And you know, like I said, like trust, loyalty, longevity with the people that you work with is so important. And not only that, but you know, transitioning into Alarms and helping me grow the entire team with Solar City. We ran the entire East Coast. And you know, you want to be able to have somebody that balances you, if any of you guys have co-managers. So the next individual that I'd like to introduce you to is a very well-known person in the industry and is going to give you a little bit of a different perspective, and somebody that's going to work with helping support you guys this year with Knockstar. So let's give it up for Kenny Crosby. Let's go. You have the mic? The handheld?
No. Yo, give it up to Taylor, honestly, for preparing all of this, coming in here and just like dropping so much value. Like, good job, Taylor. Honestly, you realize that like guys like him, there's industries that operate within his wake. What do I mean by that? Look at all of these nuggets. They're all practical things that can be used today to generate more revenue. Every single one of them. Who in here is a sales rep? Who in here is a sales leader? Just by like a show of hands. Who's like a sales leader or sales manager? Okay, cool. And then who's been like managing teams for like under a year? Okay, cool. How are you guys stepping into that role? You right there, you raise your hand. How does, like, it's a completely different role than being on the doors taking care of just yourself, right? So what has been the hardest part of getting into that role?
A lot of the guys are like my friends or college buddies, and it's tough to be that guy where you kind of tell them what to do, or come off as some really good here.
Finding that fine line between professionalism and friendship, right? Okay, who else had their hand up for being a new leader? Okay, what's the hardest role that you've had to step into there?
I would just say self-accountability.
Self-accountability. Okay. Anything else? Some challenges? Go ahead.
I'd say just understanding that everybody's wired differently, everybody reacts to certain things differently, and just like learning how to approach each individual differently.
I love that. I think that's where I really specialized, right? I never looked at a group as, hey, one thing is going to change this whole group. Who knows Andrew Carnegie, right? Anybody's heard that name before? Do you know what Carnegie was most famous for early on? Yes, he sold a lot of steel, but what was he most known for within his organization? So he employed 43 millionaires at one time. And when interviewed, they asked him, how do you employ 43 millionaires? You know what his answer was? I go in there expecting to move dirt. He's not looking for gold, he's expecting to move dirt. And that was an aha moment for me. Like Taylor talks about, like the light bulb went off. I was like, wow, you're right. I'm not gonna just find gold nuggets sitting on the surface, but if I look at my team as an individual basis, and I go in there one-on-one and we move dirt so we can help you get closer to your why through discipline, that's how you're gonna employ 43, 44, 45 millionaires. It's an individual basis. As far as the friends thing, let somebody else manage your friends. My friends don't work at my company anymore. It's hard. Because here's the thing, like Taylor said, actually, hold on, it's in your workbook. Perception. What people think of you is very important in managing others. Those people have seen you outside of your professional setting, haven't they? Quite sometimes. It's hard to be, I need everyone to fall in line when they know everything about you like that, right? So I would say, truthfully, give them to somebody else to manage. They're no longer your direct recruits, because that's a hard line to draw in the sand. You're either gonna lose friends or they're not gonna work. You know what I mean? It's like they either gotta be shaping up and getting with the program, or that's a hard line. It really is. And I think still to this day I struggle with it, and that's why I don't employ my friends under my direct downlines anymore. I just don't do it. And stepping into it, self-accountability. Is it, you don't think you've done the work, put in the work, you don't think you have a credibility story?
No, I have.
Okay. So what's like the biggest thing you struggle with self-accountability?
I guess just being consistent every day.
Okay.
With working, going out, knocking doors. I feel like that would be the biggest thing. Also, like what you were saying with managing friendships and like as friendships with coworkers.
Yep.
Like managing the balance between that. Like you said, you don't really want to lose a friend either, but
Correct.
that's also a good way of doing it, is passing down your friends to someone else instead.
I love that. But you know how, here's how you handle self-accountability. You manage the action. Like that dude right there, guess what he does? When he feels like this and a little bit shaky and times are squirrely or whatever, right? Or I'm dealing with something internally, he goes out and he leads from the front. He gets out on the doors and he rewrites another story, right? And he goes in and he puts massive action in. And then the story writes itself. It's not going up there and giving some massive training, because sales fix everything, right? He goes out there, he leads from the front, puts massive numbers on the board, and then can turn around and look at the group and say, hey, we had the same week together. How come my results were so much more different than your results, right? It just comes down to massive action. So a couple things that I wanted to break down. For me, questions that I tend to ask myself a lot is, am I growing? Am I as an individual growing? If I'm not growing, if I don't believe that I've put in the work, if I've been forged by the fire, do I truly believe that I can go through the trenches with my people? You start to feel like you're putting on a front, right? So like, ask yourself, have you truly put in the work? Have we? Have we genuinely put in the work? Are we constantly working on ourselves to get better? And are the people around me growing? One thing that J. Douglas Edwards said, and I love this, the best kind of leader is the leader who trains another person to be better than himself. What stands out about me so much about Carnegie, yeah, sure, Carnegie built empires, but he employed the most millionaires in history at one point in time. Think about what you have to do to really do that. How many people are you working on a daily basis to make their lives better, right? For us, for myself, building organizations, being a high-performing sales rep and then being kind of put, I wasn't looking for it, but you kind of get pushed into leadership, right? Because they want, eyes on you, emulate that high performance. And then now all of a sudden you're building top professionals. And then you step away again and you're building out different sales leaders, right? And it just comes down to consistency and am I putting in the work? Am I growing? Because if I'm not growing, nobody wants to be around us, right? We got to be pushing each other all together at the same time. 3 things that make it super, super simple that I like to break it down with is competency. Competency, consistency, and communication. So do my reps fully believe that I am capable of handling the task? The way I look at it realistically, right, is if my phone is ringing all the time, people need me. That's good. If nobody's calling me, I'm no good to anybody anymore, right? My advice is no longer valid. Unless, of course, I'm duplicating out other leaders. And now the conversations start changing, right? So competency, does your team believe in you? Consistency, are you able to beat the drum consistently enough? Because distractions do happen. It is hard to hold yourself accountable, right? So are we beating the drum consistently? And communication, because without vision, your people will perish. So are we sharing the vision consistently, and do our people believe that we can get them there? It's really simple when you break it down, but it starts with leading from the front, right? So one thing that I do, I look at it this way. I flip my org chart upside down. If you're the CEO of an organization, in any company, you got, the executive suite, you got your vice presidents, your directors, your sales managers, and your sales reps. Flip it completely upside down. You want to be looked at as a leader, you work for all your people. If your reps call you at 11 o'clock at night, you answer the phone. You help them solve a problem. You don't want to be the guy that's like, oh yeah, he's cool, but like, dude, I could never get in touch with Kenny. Like, I don't know, like he runs a cool sales meeting, but like I can never get in touch with him. Like I don't ever want to be that guy. So take pride in what your role is. Like genuinely take pride in that. Like you have the ability to lift other people up around you and get them out of the routine, get them out of the 9 to 5, get them out of a lifestyle of mediocrity. So when it is hard to hold yourself accountable, it's not just about you, brother. There's a lot of people around you that are counting on you too, right? So keep that in mind. And I think when it is hard to get out and do the things that you know that are required of you, when you look around the room and you're like, wow, okay, this is a lot bigger than me. We've got, Edgar's got a kid that Mauricio just had a new one, this one's working on this, right? And it's like, okay, cool. Like I have to be sharp because people are trusting in our ability to win and grow for their livelihood. And I think the selflessness of that helps, for me anyway, helps me perform better because I know that like all right, Kenny, you could not want to go to work today. You could not want to answer that call, but like to him, it's a big deal. To that person on the other side of the phone, that's a big deal. So how are we going to help them get to the next level, right? But to that one point, man, everything comes back to an individual basis. It's one-on-one moving dirt, right? You want to get a mediocre sales guy to being a top sales guy. You want to get a top sales guy to being a good sales leader. You want a leader to start being able to duplicate out other leaders, right? You know how Taylor went through the 7 P's of promotion? Those of you that are in the leadership position right now, you guys got to be focused heavily on duplication. Are you duplicating yourself? If you were gone tomorrow, could somebody fill in? Because if you don't have 3 or 4 people that could step in and run your job right now, how do you become a VP? You can't, because everything that you just built around you crumbles. So the first thing that you need to do is find the pulse of your team, understand everybody in your organization on an individual basis, empower them, and then find your replacement. Like that is the first thing you need to do. Who is going to replace you? Because if you can't find a replacement, you can't disappear up, right? I want to take some questions too. What are some of the things that are going through your brains as, you know, how do I build better organizations, you know, better relationships with my people? Any questions? Good.
What do you just kind of say, like, I've given enough of this rep and you're not stepping it up? What's kind of do you have a 3-strike rule? What's kind of your cutting?
Let me ask you this. Have you acknowledged that there's an issue with that rep yet? A couple times?
Yeah.
Are you staying consistent with it?
Yeah.
All right. How long of a period has it been that like you first brought it to him?
Probably about, a couple months, probably like 3 weeks in.
3 weeks? I would put a hard date in mind. Be like, okay, like if it's an attendance thing, right? So here's another point to that. What we allow is what's going to develop. That becomes the culture. So whether we say, hey, be on time, if we let the guy come in 3 minutes late, or we let the guy come in with sandals on, and we allow that to happen, we're okay with that. So we're promoting that now, right? If you have if you have a one-on-one with a kid and it's about performance and you say, look, you may not be cut out for this. That's okay. This job's a little bit tough, right? Are we managing the progress and putting milestones in place? So if we had the conversation with him on Monday, are we having a check-in on Wednesday, or are we letting him go 2.5 weeks without talking to him about the issue again? Because like Taylor says, if we're just managing the result, we're dead, right? But if we're managing the activity, we can move the needle. So I would say even if you want to give him a fresh start, be like, look, conversation starts today. I'm going to check in with you Wednesday. I expect you to check in with me every night and show me your dips. How many doors did you knock? How many conversations did you have? But it's got to be quick intervals, because if we let a problem just hang around for 3 weeks, he forgot we had the conversation, you guys are back to being buddy-buddy and the problem's still there, and we kind of push it under the rug. So just manage the activity of that. Like, what's the goal? Do we need to get this guy selling more? Do we need to get this guy on time? Does he need to start dressing more professionally? Like, is he not situationally aware? Whatever that issue is, identify it, have a real conversation with him. Be like, this is what we're gonna do to correct it, or otherwise, man, I'm sorry. There's a million other companies out there that'll hire you, but you're not cut out for our team because this is what we expect. But you have to follow through with it. Valid? Cool. Go ahead.
What is your advice on building leaders as we're perfecting our craft as a leader ourselves?
Ooh, drop the imposter syndrome. You're doing it. You're never going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect to start. Think about this. I don't remember. It was either Mo or Alex Smith that said it at Door to Door Con, but what's the most recognized restaurant in the world? Everybody can already say it, right? What is it? All together. McDonald's, right? Everybody in the world knows McDonald's. Now, are they the best restaurant? Do they have the best food? Do they have the best customer service? They're just the most well-known, right? So, understand that you're talented and understand that you're in a position that you're supposed to be in, Start getting yourself out there a little bit more. You may not be the most well-known, right? Like McDonald's is, but McDonald's is putting poison into everybody's belly. But they're just the most well-known, doesn't mean they're the best. So drop the imposter syndrome, do what you know is best for your people, and one-on-one, man, find your replacement. Find 2 or 3 of them along the way, and find somebody that you can be mentored by, right? Don't stop continuing to work on yourself just because people are watching you, but double or triple down on yourself, but keep moving fast. That would be my honestly best advice for you. Because I feel like a lot of times, like when that starts to happen and we start to get these more responsibilities, we can definitely go inward on ourselves a little bit more. Do the opposite. Good.
What advice do you have for the friendship leader scenario where they didn't start as a friend maybe, but you're having those one-on-one conversations and you become friends?
Okay.
But you want to remain the leader and set that boundary. What's good advice there?
What is the best advice for that? All right, so just so everybody else can hear. So somebody who's working in your organization, you become friendly with them, and now you're trying to push them to the next level, essentially, is what you're saying, but you're kind of feeling like you're plateauing with them?
Well, I think there has to be a boundary for when you're the leader, and you have people you bring up, because you don't want to become too friendly because then you lose a little bit of the role.
Yep. Check in with their goals more frequently. That's one thing that, I mean, yeah, we've been friends for 17 years, but like this dude checks me like nobody else's business, you know what I mean? So I have a lot of respect for him because of that. It's like, yeah, like we've been friends for 17 years, whatever it is, but I still learn things, he still pushes me, and I still dislike him strongly at times. I'm like, dude, we're moving too fast. He's like, shut up, dude, we're not moving fast enough, right? Didn't you want to get this done? Didn't you want to get that done? So I think checking in with their goals and realizing that, just like a customer, the sales presentation isn't isn't to the customer, it's for the customer. So as a sales leader, your customers are no longer homeowners, they're salespeople. So your job is to get them to their goals the same way that as a salesperson, your goal is to get them to a yes and put solar on their house, right? So check in with them more frequently on their goals and hold them accountable. One of the good, what is it? We call it rosebud thorn. So rosebud thorn, when I'm sitting there doing one-on-ones, we do one-on-ones with our group once a month. My rose would be something that I'm really confident in, I'm doing well, so on and so forth. My bud would be something that's coming about that I'm excited for, and then my thorn is like my Achilles heel, like that's what's holding me back. So I feel like if you do that maybe a little bit more consistently with your group, and you truly hold them accountable to what they're working for, you'll demand more respect as their leader because you're pushing them in the direction and not allowing them to level down. We'll take like 1 or 2 more. And bring up magnets. Go ahead.
What's your advice on finding the fine line between not being too hard on your guys, pushing them too hard? Because when I bring guys out, I want them to succeed and do as well as they can.
Okay.
But sometimes I can catch myself being when they don't succeed to that level that I want them to, I'm beating myself up because my guys aren't doing as well as I want them to, and then they how do you find that fine line? Not too hard, but
It's tough. I look at a lot of things like a locker room. I played competitive sports growing up. So I understand it's okay to get hit in the head a couple times and you got to fall in line and get the job done. And I don't care about your feelings. So that still has to exist, but you got to understand that it's a professional environment at the same time too, and you can't always want it more than them. They got to ardently desire to be great, like Taylor says. And if they truly can't fall in line, then maybe they're not the best. They're not the best for this job. You get to be selective of who you work with as a sales leader. Now, yeah, you want Obviously, you want everyone to be great. Not everybody is going to be great, right? And for a lot of people, they make a lot of money in this industry, so doing 3 or 4 a month is okay because what were they used to making, right? So get them comfortable with the newfound wave of success that they're on, but challenge them to be better. And they may not be able to see that vision unless somebody else goes out and shows them that first. So I would say if you have a couple people that are kind of like facing that plateau right now, go be the guy that moves the needle. Go set the bar higher so that people have an example. Because if there's no example right now, then like everyone's just complacent. Anything else? All right, cool. Taylor, I'm gonna pass this back over to you, man.